Hello and welcome to the 2025 Mendocino County Point-in-Time Count Training. Thank you for joining us in this important effort to improve the understanding of homelessness in your county. This training is focused on the count and survey portion, which will take place on Wednesday, January 29th. We will share additional details regarding the purpose and methodology as this training continues. In this training, we'll cover the following: the purpose of the point-in-time count, the definition of homelessness used for the count, how to conduct the count, and some reminders and next steps. There are several reasons why a point-in-time count is conducted. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, requires all communities that receive federal funding for homeless services to conduct a point-in-time or PIT count of all persons experiencing homelessness during the last 10 days of January. Counts of people who are unsheltered, meaning living outdoors, in vehicles, tents, or other similar locations neither intended or fit for human habitation, are currently required every other year. In addition to meeting federal requirements, the point-in-time count provides valuable data for community understanding of homelessness. Data on the extent, prevalence, and reasons for homelessness is also invaluable for local planning efforts and community understanding. This figure shows the different components that the count includes to make sure all people experiencing homelessness are represented in the count. You will be participating in the street count and survey, which is highlighted in the middle box on this slide. The street count is a count of people who are currently unsheltered and will take place during the early morning hours on January 29th, before people begin moving through their day and before people staying in shelters leave the facility. Timing and coordination are important to avoid duplication, so areas surrounding shelter locations should be counted first. Route timing is important, and we'll be discussing this later today. Rural regions and non-shelter areas may also be subject to special arrangements, or may be eliminated due to access difficulties. We will discuss how your team should prioritize counting locations within your assigned count area, such as shelters, later in this presentation. The other components include the shelter count and the survey. The shelter count collects information on the number of people staying in shelter programs across the county and will be conducted using HMIS. Victim service providers will be provided with an Excel workbook that will generate de-identified data for reporting inclusion. The survey will be conducted during the general street count. The survey portion provides us with a more detailed understanding of the homeless experience and the diversity of the population and its characteristics throughout the region, including information on veterans, families with children, and people experiencing long-term homelessness. We have made changes that are designed to ensure the safety of all participants in the count. They include in-person deployment sites, the pre-assignment of the majority of PIT routes or census tracts, emphasis on outreach teams with lived experience guides and direct service program staff, the inclusion of the smartphone app Survey 123 to be used for documenting information on persons experiencing homelessness, and the team captain or a designee will be the operator of the Survey 123 app. The street count is a count of people residing on the streets, in parks and open spaces, in tents, in vehicles, in abandoned buildings, or in makeshift shelters constructed of tarps, cardboard, or other materials. The street count will be conducted while people are still in public shelters in the morning, which will help us have an unduplicated count of everyone experiencing homelessness that day. To avoid duplication, we ask you to count the areas surrounding shelters first. As a reminder, volunteers will not be paid for their time, but may be reimbursed for their mileage if using a personal vehicle at the current IRS mileage rate. Guides, who are individuals who have previously or are currently experiencing homelessness, will be paid a cash stipend upon completion of their count route. Here you can see what to expect on the morning of the count. Guides and volunteers will arrive at 5 a.m., and the goal is to have you out the door and in the field as soon as possible so that your team has adequate time to cover your route. If your team does not plan on arriving at a deployment site on the morning of the count, you must have prior approval and call 877-728-4545 upon departure and return from your PIT count routes. You will first access the PIT count survey on the Survey 123 app. You will need access to the survey via link or QR code. The QR code is shown on the screen for your convenience. You will also receive a link and a QR code via email prior to the count. We expect all teams to finish their routes by 9 a.m. Please call us if you think you need to be out any later than 9 a.m., or if you need additional help to complete your assignment. We strongly encourage you to conduct as thorough of a count of your assigned maps as you can. There are two different types of participants on each team during the general street count: volunteers and guides. This slide outlines the differences between guides and volunteers. A guide is an individual who has previously or is currently experiencing homelessness and uses their knowledge to identify individuals experiencing homelessness during the general street count. They will guide their team towards locations in their assigned count area where individuals experiencing homelessness are likely to be seen, and will help distinguish between safe and potentially dangerous situations. Guides are compensated for their time and contributions to the count in the form of a $20 per hour cash stipend. A volunteer will provide consultation and support in team decisions. They will be in charge of transporting their count team through their assignment and will help ensure that full coverage of the map is achieved and communicate with pick count organizers as needed. Please note that volunteers are not paid for their participation in the count. Teams should note that because we are covering the majority of the geography of Mendocino County, there may be instances where the guide is not personally knowledgeable about the specific route the team is covering. However, guides are still able to draw on their first-hand experience of homelessness to help identify potential locations or persons based on previous experiences and signs in the environment. If a team is confused on whether or not a person should be included in the count, we ask them to collaborate within their team to make an informed decision. All team members are in charge of ensuring that the methodology is being followed, and should designate one member to be in charge of completing the observational survey and one team member responsible for tracking the team's coverage of their count area. The next set of slides will outline how to use the data collection forms that you will use on the morning of the count. Each team will be able to select specific routes and be given maps of those routes, which will be emailed to you prior to the count. If there are issues printing the maps, there will be a few locations across the county where a physical map can be picked up. Your route will be outlined. Please stay within the tracked border. Often, the boundary of your route is a street. If the borderline is a street, count people on the inside side of the street, or the side of the street that connects with the rest of your route. If there is someone moving back and forth across the street, you should count them. In some cases, one team will be assigned to a border street, and the other team will be informed not to include surveys in that area. A good example of this is Highway 20 in Willits. One team would cover the entirety of that border, while the other team can scratch it off their to-do list. Please cover all areas. The count persons are persons who are experiencing homelessness or living in a place not meant for human habitation. This includes tents, vehicles, parks, sidewalks, etc. Be sure to drive or walk down each street. Count on both sides of the street unless it's a route border. Look for open areas. You may need to get out and walk. You decide the route you take. That route may depend on traffic or where shelters are located. Be sure to cover areas around shelters first. It's a good idea to put an X on streets and areas once you've covered them, so you don't count them twice. If you're assigned to two contiguous maps, be sure to outline a route that will easily take you from one map to the other. After using the link or QR code to access the survey, Survey 123 will ask for access to your camera. Please select Allow. To be clear, you should not be taking any photos of people experiencing homelessness during the count. The reason you'll select Allow is because that's the default response in Survey 123, and we don't want you to run into any technical issues during the count. After that, you'll need to select Continue without signing in. Before entering the survey, Survey 123 will ask to use your location information. You'll need to select Allow while using app. After that, the survey will ask for your phone number, your email address, and your assigned census tract number. Your census tract number will be located on the maps you'll receive prior to the count. You'll enter in that number and suffix into the appropriate field, just as it's written on the map. The only exception to this is Tract 104. If you are the Survey 123 operator in Tract 104, you'll enter in 104A. After entering in your assigned census tract number, you'll approach the first person you see that appears to be experiencing homelessness, introduce yourself, and ask if you can have about 10 minutes of their time. If they say yes, you'll conduct an interview with this person and ask a number of questions. If they don't want to give you 10 minutes of their time, you'll conduct an observational documentation. The interview survey is easy to follow and contains skip logic, so questions will appear based off previous answers. The observational documentation asks you if you'd like to conduct a confirmed or suspected entry. A confirmed entry is defined as a sighting of a person or persons on the street, in a vehicle, a tent, or any other locations not intended for human habitation. A suspected entry is defined as a tent or vehicle you believe to be inhabited but cannot confirm due to distance or privacy reasons. Please see the smartphone training for a deeper dive into the Survey 123 app. The link to the smartphone training can be found in the description of this video. Listed here are some ways to identify vehicles that are housing individuals. We want to maintain a respectful distance, so please do not walk up and look inside the vehicle, knock on vehicle doors or windows, or shine flashlights into the vehicle. Instead, here are some signs to look for that can indicate whether somebody is living in the vehicle or not. A vehicle with windows that are fogged, partially open, or blocked, electrical connections or generators, screens or window coverings, items inside and outside of the vehicle, including household items such as bags or clothing, sounds of music or talking coming from inside the vehicle, or that the vehicle is in a known safe parking location, which may be designated on your map. Now that you understand how entries are made within Survey 123, we highly recommend testing the application while out and about prior to the count. Location data is critical, so please make sure your location settings are enabled within the settings on your mobile device. Feel free to submit your entries as well, as all entries prior to count day will be removed. Safety is a top priority while out in the field. Please take note of the following items when you are out conducting the count. Please be safe and do not take any risks. Do not take photos while out in the field to protect the privacy of those being counted. Please keep all locations and information confidential and do not discuss them after the count in social media or other public forums. Stay with your teammates, be respectful of those you are counting, and if you have any questions or problems, call your deployment center captain. Once again, safety comes first for all count participants. If an area seems too unsafe to cover, do not enter it. Mark the area on your map to show your deployment center captain when you return. Some of these areas will have special teams to cover them. If you have a true emergency, please call 911 and then notify your deployment center captain when appropriate. We will review the safety and confidentiality protocols again on the day of the count. Here are a few tips on how to prepare for the count. Wear comfortable shoes and clothing. Dress warmly. Wear a jacket, sweatshirt, raincoat, gloves, hat, etc. It's the wintertime. Bring a car if possible. Bring a fully charged cell phone. Bring a flashlight. The count will happen rain, snow, or shine, so be sure to bring an umbrella or cold weather gear if necessary. And of course, be sure to get plenty of rest the night before. We will be in touch with you regarding any specific deployment location information, as well as reminders as we approach the day of the count. Please feel free to contact us at the listed email or phone number with any questions. Thank you in advance for your participation in the 2025 point-in-time count. Please encourage your friends, family, and colleagues to join us in this year's count by directing them to the volunteer registration link. We couldn't do this without you, and we look forward to seeing you.